a murder into one of mine.
Nice. Hey, Swati.
Hey, Randall. Hey,
How
Hannah.
you doing?
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? How are you doing, Randall?
Doing well.
Good to see you again, Julie. So, Randall, you're taking the reins today, right?
I am taking the reins today, yes. So for all the people that were coming in and continue to come in, if you're looking for Jennie, you're in the right spot. She's not going to be, unfortunately, be able to be with us today. She has become the latest statistic of COVID. She just, she was hoping she'd be able to at least hang, if not conduct the interview, but from what I can see with most people that I've ever known that have gotten COVID, don't talk, get away from people, just lie down, rest, get your energy back.
I had COVID. It just lasted 5 days and I wanted to sleep all the time.
Are you feeling better now though?
Oh yeah, you go a bit like weak, but it was really, well, I won't use the word nothing, but it was like nothing.
Well, good. Glad to hear that.
Yeah.
And I'm not vaccinated.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. So what I think I'm going to do, people are still coming in, but we'll get a start on it. For those of you who aren't Hannah or me for the moment, please mute your microphones just so we can reduce the amount of background noise. Thank you. And so welcome. Welcome to the latest edition of Collab Writers. I am Randall Willis, who has been assigned. I don't know how well you can see it. I'm like that camera's not working. I'm like the Canadian chapter. The Canadians have taken over. Although, I'll let Hannah self-identify. She lives in Canada now. That's the important thing. And she's married to a Canadian. That's the important thing. So Jennie asked me to step in and Hannah and I have known each other for a little while now. And so, this seemed to be the perfect opportunity for me to come on and basically take over. Although Anjali will keep an eye on me. Make sure I don't get too, welcome. Today, I am so happy to have Hannah as our guest. Hannah and I met a few years ago, and we'll talk about this at some point later, when she took a rain dance screenwriting class, looking to adapt one of her novels. And so, immediately upon meeting Hannah, here is a woman who knows something about story. So there goes half my class. This is a woman who tells riveting stories and very interesting stories and very character-driven stories. To get back to something Julie was mentioning earlier, these aren't your, as we were discussing, your cops and robbers stories. These are relationships. These are characters of questionable character. But again, I'll let Hannah describe that more. Just as a quick introduction, which is mostly me just cribbing from her website, which I highly recommend people visit because there's a lot of cool stuff on there. Born in the UK, raised in Switzerland, and now living in Canada, and even married to a Canadian, Hannah took a circuitous route to becoming a successful novelist with various roles in high-tech industries, including the position of CEO at an IT recruiting company. So if this system hoses, I'm just going to rely on Hannah to fix it. And she's also been a startup entrepreneur. So that all changed, she says, in 2010 when she decided to pursue her oldest passion, which was writing, starting with a rom-com that we'll discuss and becoming better known more recently for her suspense novels. Her latest thriller, Never Coming Home, was launched in late May, if I remember correctly. So, yep, there you go. Yeah, I don't have a copy of that one, but I got a copy of my camera's not focusing.
It's blurry.
Yeah, okay. Her Secret's on. And apparently if I have my background blurred, I think that's the problem. And the neighbors. So, so welcome, Hannah.
Thank you. I'm really thrilled to be here. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, so why don't we start with a bit of the following the Marvel thing, a bit of an origin story. So what's a nice IT recruiter like you doing in a place like this?
Well, I blame my husband. Rob is Canadian, and we met in '99, very much by accident on ICQ, if anyone remembers that, in a chat room. The very night I had the internet installed at my house, when it was the era of dial-up modems and having to choose between being online or on the phone. You couldn't do both. My kids would freak at that, I'm sure. And so he moved to Switzerland. We stayed there for another 11 years. We had 3 kids, and then we decided to come to Canada. So I started up my own company, having come from IT recruitment. I started up a new company and a new spin on HR, and it tanked. It crashed and burned, something awful in the first year. It was my most spectacular failure. And it hurt like heck because professionally, I'd always done really well. And so I found myself in a bit of a conundrum and at a crossroads, wondering what to do. Am I going to continue the corporate route, which, by the way, was one of the reasons why we came to Canada? Rob was a stay-at-home dad with our 3 kids. And I was working full-time in IT recruitment, managing this pan-European company. And I was supposed to find more balance coming to Canada. And that wasn't going to happen if I was going to commute downtown Toronto and take on a big wig job again. And so after mulling around a bit, Rob said, for the love of God, if you could do anything, what would it be? And I said, well, in the back of my mind, I've always thought about perhaps writing a novel one day. And he said, well, why don't you do that then? I think he was fed up with me moping around. So he was the one who actually gave me a bit of a shove towards writing novels. And here we are, via many mistakes and things I should have done before I did them and whatnot, like taking courses, for example, would have been a good idea a little earlier on. But here we are, 6 books published, another 2 written and in the works for 2023. And I'm now plotting the one for 2024.
Well, and that definitely seems to be the thing. Again, following you on social media for the last few years, you're constantly posting, and I don't say that in a negative way. You're constantly posting about here's where this project is, here's where this project is, and oh crap, I've got a file folder full of juicy tidbits for the next project. And so it seems like is that sort of the way you like to work, is just to have something at a different stage, or has it just been happenstance that you're just creatively exploding all over the place?
I'm on a book a year schedule with the suspense novels. So when you're on a book a year schedule, so for example, right now I'm in full-blown promotion mode for Never Coming Home, which published May 24th. So I've been doing lots of events, lots of Instagram lives and Facebook lives and Zooms and whatnot. But at the same time, I was writing a rom-com for next year. That's another project that I happen to pick up. So I'll have 2 books coming out next year. At the same time, I'll join book clubs for, say,
there you go,
any of my past books, whether it's You Will Remember Me or Sister Dear or whichever one, and then thinking about the plot for the thriller for 2024, because the one for 2023 is done, but I was editing that one. So because of the schedule that I'm on, I'm never just working on one project and then I'm done completely with that one, and then I start the next one and I write that one and I finish that and then I work on the next one. It just doesn't work that way with a book, or maybe 2 books a year now. It's just a different rhythm. Right.
Well, and definitely, again, you've sort of been your process has always seemed very methodical, very planned. And I would from your perspective, does maybe that, because a lot of people, I'm not the greatest outliner when it comes to my screenplays, and God knows the novel that's still been sitting on my laptop for several decades now. So do you ascribe any of that to either how you were raised, or potentially just your business background? Again, the idea that things are typically more regimented in a business.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of, I've always been someone who's really structured, whether it was at school with homework, college with projects, or then at work with other projects. So I was always very methodical in my approach. I mean, when I ran the IT company, the IT recruitment company, when I first joined, I did everything that wasn't sales. That was kind of my unofficial job title, because it was a startup. So everyone was pitching in. So that meant I'd go and get the milk, and I'd bring all of the accounts in-house and set up subsidiaries and whatnot. So at a later stage. But taking that example, when during a management meeting, we decided that we were going to open up a subsidiary in Frankfurt, everyone looked at me and said, so you're going to do that, right? I said, sure. Absolutely, I'll do that. Didn't have a clue how, but I knew I would find people, just like I do in writing when I'm doing my research. How do I get away with murder? Well, I've never murdered anyone and got away with it or otherwise. And so I need to access people who know about this stuff, generally cops, not the criminals. So I've always been really methodical. And I think the more I write, the more I've outlined. I always need a beginning and an end when I start plotting. I always need to at least think I know what the end will be, kind of the last image, because otherwise I'm not sure how I'm going to get. I don't know where I'm going, really. If I don't have a map, I don't know where I'm going. So I plot ahead of time. But there are many authors, and I'm sure screenwriters too, who plot on the page. They discover the story as they're writing it. Mm-hmm. Whereas I think it through beforehand, not everything, because it's impossible for me, at least, to foresee every single twist and turn. If I could do that, I might as well just write the thing, you know? Right. I might as well just write the whole 300 pages instead of a 20-page plot or something. But I do find that being super organized, and quite methodical in my approach has allowed me, for me, and I know this doesn't work for everyone, to write at that pace of one, maybe now 2 books a year. Otherwise, I fear I would spend an awful lot of time just meandering around trying to figure out what happens, which right. wouldn't be very helpful. That's fine if you've got 5 years to write a book and no deadline. Right.
No, definitely. You've also, I think, have talked in the past about sort of the outline is a step in the process, but there's also allowing the story to sort of show itself as well. That there's sort of a give and take there between having a destination in mind, but not ever being fully sure you're going to get there.
Yes, absolutely. So it depends on the book. So with The Neighbours, that was my first suspense one. I had an ending in mind, and as I was writing the chapters that were leading me to that end, and something happened. And if I say too much, I'll reveal what it is. So I don't want to do that. But something happened, and I thought, oh, whoa, that is more interesting. And I think that the ending of the book is far more memorable the way I wrote it than the way I had originally plotted it. So I'm really happy. With Her Secret Son, that one was a bit of a conundrum because I couldn't figure out who to kill and why, which is a bit of a problem. I had a number of ideas, and I'm very happy with the one we chose in the end. Sister Dear, I knew exactly where my character would be, both emotionally and geographically speaking, at the end of the book before I started. I knew exactly where she was going to be, and that didn't change. You Will Remember Me was a bit trickier, but I had 3 endings in mind, and I asked my editor, how dark can I go? And she said, as dark as you want. And so I did, because why not? And then with Never Coming Home, that was really an anomaly. I think that book was the smoothest to write so far, to the point where before I started writing, I had the last word. I knew what the last word was going to be. And that has never happened before. And I don't imagine that will ever happen again. But it was just, I almost saw the book, because I'm very visual when I write. So as I was writing it, I was describing what I saw in my mind.
Oh, sorry. For anyone who's got their microphone on, could you please mute? Thank you. Sorry, Hannah.
That's okay. So as I was writing the book, or as I was plotting the book, I could see it playing out in my mind. And so the last word, I knew what it would be. As I said, I don't think that will ever happen again. That was an anomaly. That book was very good to me.
Right.
And they aren't all good to me.
I hear that. Yeah, I've got a murder thriller screenplay that I've written, and halfway through it, I still didn't know who the killer was. So it was like, okay, well, hopefully I'll figure it out before I finish writing the screenplay.
I host First Chapter Fun, which might be interesting to everyone watching. So First Chapter Fun is on Facebook and Instagram every Tuesday and Thursday at 12:30 p.m. Eastern. And fellow crime author, 37 or 38, I've lost count, Emmy winner, Hank Philippi Ryan, journalist for 40 odd years. She's a powerhouse, she really is. She's written 13 or 14 books. And we read the first chapter of other authors' books twice a week live. And we're not audiobook narrators, so this, we fluff lines and whatnot, but basically we introduce the author and the book and then read the first chapter. And the authors correspond with viewers in the comments, so they're not actually on screen. She does not plot her novels. She doesn't want to plot her novels because she enjoys getting up in the morning and thinking, oh, what's going to happen next? And she'll sit down and she'll plot on the page. And I find that extraordinary. So I don't think there's any one way that is correct. Mm-hmm. The correct way is the way that works best for you.
Right.
It's as simple as that. And every author's a little bit different. Screenwriter's a bit different.
Well, and I think that's also a thing too that you sort of alluded to in some respects in describing the books, is that not only is there going to be the mechanism that works for you, but there may be multiple mechanisms depending on what project you're working on. Yes. That the way I would write one screenplay may not be the way I write the next one, depending on how it comes to me. And I think you were kind of suggesting that in some manner.
I think that's fair. And some manuscripts or screenplays will probably be easier than others, just because it works and it clicks, and I don't know why that is. I have no idea. The rom-com that I wrote for next year, I had the idea. My agent asked me, I think it was a Thursday afternoon, about writing a rom-com, and I'd been thinking about writing something lighter for a while because COVID, the last 2 years have been a bit crap. And so always being in the mindset of a murder and dealing with, or not of a murderer, but dealing with suspense novels, I thought, it'd be kind of nice to write something lighter, but I don't know how I'm going to do that, how I'm going to fit it in. And if I haven't sold it and then it doesn't sell, is it worth my time? And out of the blue, she said, look, do you have any ideas, anything for a holiday rom-com? And I said, yeah, I do. And I floated one idea. We weren't super sold on it. And then I had another idea. Literally, it was about 2 hours later. We were eating dinner. And I looked at Rob and I said, holiday games. And he said, what? And I just said, see you later. And I dashed off into the office where I am now. And the whole plot it was just there. It just worked. Whereas the one I'm working on now, the thriller for 2024, I've been thinking about that one. That's been percolating in my brain now. And I think I'm there. I think so. But I've been going out for walks and thinking about it, and what's the approach I'm going to take? Is it more of a locked room? No, I don't want to do that. What am I going to? So it just takes more time to percolate and mature in my head, and I don't know why that is. Right. It's a mystery.
Exactly. Yes, that hopefully nobody has to die for.
Yes, right.
But actually, this is probably a good segue into, one of our guests earlier had a question about ideation. Where do your ideas come from? And do you have any processes you go through aside from, manna from heaven?
Just hoping, crossing my fingers. I think the more I write, the more I'm open and receptive, I think, to ideas that I might keep and write down somewhere or discard or whatnot. So for time after time, that was my first one, my rom-com. Never written a novel before, written a couple of short stories maybe, but it had been a while. And I decided that I was going to write about a character in her early 40s who may or may not have some curly brown hair. You can see where this is going. And she, her father's had a stroke. Her husband's been made redundant, lots of financial pressure on her. And she's wondering how her life might have turned out had she made different choices, specifically if she'd never met her husband, but married the first guy she'd gone out with. And so it's a Groundhog Day meets Sliding Doors mashup, really, of those two movies. And that one just came from moving to Canada, my business failing, me sulking, that sounds a bit petulant, but wondering what on earth I was going to do next. And that idea just it must have been in the back of my mind somewhere, but it happened to arrive. And then for The Neighbours, which is about somebody moving in, an ex-boyfriend moving in next door, I was standing here, and we live on a courtyard. It's about 9 houses, 7, 9, 8, 9 houses. And 2 of them went up for sale in really quick succession. And I'm standing there with a cup of tea thinking, wonder who's going to move in. Oh God, wouldn't it be really awkward if it was an ex-boyfriend? Oh, depending on which one, that would be really awkward. And that quickly went to, but why? Why would it be awkward? Why? And then it quickly went to other people, 2 characters, man and woman. They used to be lovers. He moves in next door, but they don't tell their respective partners with whom they have kids and they've been married for 15 years that they used to be lovers. Why? What are they hiding? What are their secrets? And that was it. I just needed to know what was going on. I was the nosy neighbor, I suppose. And then the other ones, Her Secret Son, Sister Dear, and You Will Remember Me were all from the news. But generally it was so Sister Dear was, I was listening to the radio, driving one of my kids somewhere. And there was a segment about someone who had found a ring at a playground, and they were trying to find the rightful owner. It was a wedding ring, I believe, and they were looking for the rightful owner via Twitter. And initially I thought, oh, that's so nice. Swiftly followed by, oh, but what happens if the person who found the ring finds the owner and the owner has a much better life than they do, and they start stalking them because they're envious? That's not the premise of Sister Dear exactly, but because they're half sisters, but there is a pivotal scene with a ring, and that's no surprise because that's where the inspiration came from. For You Will Remember Me, that's an amnesia thriller. Do you remember the story about a gentleman from Toronto who disappeared from a ski hill in Lake Placid, winter 2018, 2019, firefighter he was with his friends. He said, I'm just going to go to the car and get something, and vanished. Just disappeared. And after days and days of searching for him, people thought, well, maybe he went back up the mountain for another run, and he fell, and we'll find him sometime in the spring or something. They assumed he was dead. Not so. He showed up 6 days later in Sacramento wearing his ski gear. Never been to Sacramento. Didn't know why he was there, didn't know what he was doing. And eventually he managed to contact somebody who knew who he was, and he was brought home because he had amnesia. He had retrograde amnesia, so he couldn't remember anything from the point of when he arrived in Sacramento. And I found that so fascinating. Thankfully, everything worked out for him. But I thought, well, 2 things. First of all, having amnesia must be terrifying, obviously, because you don't know who you are, where you are, you don't know anything. But also, you have to trust the people who are telling you who you are and who they are. And you have to trust that they're telling you the truth and that they have your best intentions at heart. Right. And what happens if they don't? So that was really that's really where the ideas come from. Never Coming Home, again, different. That one was character driven. That one was from movies, actually. Watching movies.
Sorry.
Do you see the name Heathrow?
Folks, can we mute our Zoom windows?
Okay.
That's Randall doing this.
We need to have our systems muted.
That's Randall in Toronto. He's doing a Zoom freebie.
Yes, and Randall can hear you.
Okay, good. So I love movies and books where you root for the villain, even though you know you shouldn't. And I thought that was really fascinating. And I wondered if I could pull that off. I wondered if I could write a book like that. So that was really, right. So Never Coming Home was really character driven because it's all written from the bad guy's point of view. Lucas has hired a hitman to get rid of his exceedingly rich but equally annoying wife via the dark web, and it's his story. He's right from the beginning. He's very open about what he's done. So it was very much, Julie, you were asking that earlier about characters, and I spend a lot of time developing my characters. I will interview my characters, which sounds really odd, but that's part of my process. I have a 3-page questionnaire that I put them through, and it's, you know, typical things. What do they look like, and how old are they, and where did they grow up, but then there's other things. How much money have they got in their bank account? Do they believe in ghosts? Have they ever seen one? I don't write paranormal stuff, but the point is that each character then becomes a person, and it ensures that they sound differently and think differently and act differently. So I do a lot of character development before I even start writing. I need to know who they are, and then I uncover them more and more as I write the story, of course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I'm a big advocate of interviewing your characters, and you know, I do an exercise in the Raindance screenwriting class that I call protagonist speed date, where we have 2 students interview each other's protagonists as their protagonist.
I love that.
Yeah,
it's
you end up learning so much more about your characters because somebody else is asking the question.
You do.
But yeah.
You do. So, a friend of mine, UK author Karen Hamilton, she wrote The Perfect Girlfriend, was one of her big hits. She actually goes to see a psychiatrist or a therapist as her character, and generally her characters are not good people. And she said, I'll go and see them and spend an hour just in character, and they'll ask me all kinds of questions about my character, and I answer them as my character. And she said a couple of times I had to break character and say, you know, I don't think this, right? You know, this isn't me. This I would never do these things. I would never say these things. Okay, I'm going to go back into my character now because she's worried that they're going to think that she's a bit odd, but she isn't. She's lovely, and her books are great. I thought that was such a cool exercise, which sounds similar to your speed dating. Right. I love that. That's great.
Yeah, no, it's there is always that chance that even I find when you're writing something that's a little out there, a little salacious in some manner, like socially unacceptable, your friends tend to look at you differently, and so you've got to, you know, make sure no one's trying to medicate you against your will. Kind of
well, let me tell you, I had a couple of people who said, should Rob be worried because of Never Coming Home? In fact, my 17-year-old son, one of my 17-year-old sons, I have 2, I have twins. He came into the room and he said, Mum, Dad, should I worry about Dad? I said, what are you talking about? Why? And he said, well, Lucas hires a hitman on the dark web to kill his wife. And, you know, should I worry about Dad? I said, oh, no, don't worry. But actually, you've just reminded me, I need to call the insurance broker about our life insurance policies. We better do an update. So,
nice.
Was not amused. He was not amused.
Nice.
I was.
Cool. Just for everybody's sake, you know, if you want to ask a specific question, I've got the chat window open. So hopefully, you know, if you want to type something in there that's germane to what we're talking about, or we'll try to get to your questions as much. And then toward the end, we'll open it up so people have a chance to ask directly. But so, you know, what attracted you to the thriller genre. And I was reading a review of your most recent book, and somebody was describing it as, darkly comic storytelling. And so, I know you as someone with a good sense of humor. So could you even maybe talk on that, of like what brought you into this particular genre?
So as I was writing, I used to read thrillers a lot as a teen. I read thrillers all the time. That was my go-to genre, up until about the age of 23, 24, I guess. And then my best friend was murdered. Very difficult, tragic, horrific, horrible circumstances. He was murdered by his dad, along with many other people, and that were murdered. Not that many people murdered him, but it was, but not a good situation. And so I couldn't stomach thrillers anymore for a long time. I would only read the lighter stuff. And then I'd written Time After Time, so my rom-com, and I had started working on The Neighbours, but Time After Time hadn't sold so yet at that point. And they always say when you're in sub club, when you're out on submission, write something else, work on something else. And so I was writing this one, and I happened to go to the library, and I saw a book called Creep by Jennifer Hillier, and it's this grey cover with red shiny letters, Creep, and a pair of handcuffs dangling down. And there was something about that cover that made me pick it up. I read the back cover, I read the first chapter, and I took it home. And I read it, and I read the sequel, Freak, and I read her third one, The Butcher, and I just loved them. And I thought, I used to love thrillers, and I'm ready to go and wreak some fictional havoc. I want to write something darker. So it was actually Jennifer Hillier, who pulled me over to the dark side. And I met her completely by coincidence, really, at Bouchercon, the murder mystery writers convention that happened to be in Toronto in 2017. And I had a complete fangirl moment, squeaky high voice and flappy arms and the whole 9 yards. And I said to her, it's because of your book that I started writing the darker stuff. And she happened to be moving back to Oakville, where I live. And we are now really close friends, which is really, really funny. And her books are great. If you haven't discovered Jennifer Hillier yet, I highly recommend them. They're really, really good. And I just loved the genre, and I fell back in love with it, really, if that makes sense. I was ready to, I don't like graphic gore, although there've been a couple of books that, one which was really cool, called Hell Chose Me by Angel Luis Colon, where it deals with a hitman. It's through the eyes of a hitman who's the ghosts of his victims hang around him for a few days after he's murdered them, which I thought was such a cool premise. What a cool premise. And it's this cutesy pink cover with a cutesy little pig on it. Don't let that fool you. It's pretty hard-boiled noir. It's great, and I love it. But that was really why I went back into writing thrillers. And the reason why specifically Never Coming Home is funnier than all of my other ones. It's dark humor. It's not a rom-com. It's about a guy who has his wife murdered, but there are funny moments because he, I think, is funny. And the reason why was because although this is the third book for me that has released in COVID times, it is actually the first book that I wrote exclusively during COVID time. So I started plotting and writing it in 2020. COVID had arrived. My mum passed away. I couldn't get to Switzerland to see it. It was just a nasty year. 2020 was just rubbish. And so when I started writing it, I thought, okay, I'm writing this book from a villain's point of view. I can either write him so that people love to hate him and cannot wait to see his demise, brackets, Ramsay Bolton in Game of Thrones, anyone? I was really happy when things happened to him. Or I could write him so that people hate to love him. They're rooting for him, even though they know they shouldn't. And one of the ways to try and do that was to give him a sense of humor. But I also needed that for me because 2020 was such a crappy year. When I got up in the morning and I went into the manuscript, I do that with a smile on my face because he was funny. He's very wry, and it depends if you like he has my sense of humor. So it depends if you like my sense of humor or not. That you will either find him funny or not. But I found him really funny, and that's why the book made me laugh so much as I wrote it, because I needed somewhere to go where I could safely wreak havoc, but also have a laugh, and right. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Cool. Actually, that brings up something too. I know you've written recently. You guest blog in a variety of different places, and that's pretty cool. If you just again go back to Hannah's website, and she's got all these listings of radio interviews and blogs and that type of thing that are pretty cool to go through. But one of the ones you wrote recently, or within the last couple of years, was about writing from the perspective of the antagonist. And, you know, also, if I remember correctly, it's been a couple of years since I've read The Neighbors, but even in that book, you know, you're taking multiple perspectives. You're revealing the story from different characters' perspectives as the story's unfolding. So, you know, from your perspective, pardon the expression, what's the interest there, and why specifically the antagonist? What makes that interesting for you in particular?
I had in You Will Remember Me, there is one character, that there are 3 point of view characters, and one of them is really up to no good. And I won't tell you which one because it's not revealed right from the beginning. Whereas in Never Coming Home, you know at the very beginning, at the first chapter, that Lucas is not a good person. And I just found it really fascinating to put myself in those shoes for a number of reasons. One, to see if I could pull it off, because I've always liked, even my corporate life, going back to deciding at a board meeting that I would be the one who would open up a subsidiary in Germany. I love being in situations that I've never been in before, then figuring my way around. I think that's really super cool because I learn new stuff all the time. And I love that. And writing from the antagonist point of view, I'm a rule follower, you know. I was always the nerd in school. I was always the one who was always on time. I'm still always on time. In fact, I'm generally early, because if I'm on time, I feel that I'm late. And when my kids used to come home with forms to fill in for school, they would be the first ones to take them back to school, because that's just who I'm just wired that way. I just am. So it was really fun to be the bad person, to think, okay, so I'm going to get rid of my spouse via the dark web. I did not go on the dark web. That was a step too far for me. I did not do that. But I had very interesting conversations with detective sergeants about, okay, so if I'm going to fox the cops, if I'm going to fool them and stay ahead, these are the things I'm thinking of doing. And he said, okay, yeah, but you need to do this, this, and this, and this as well. So if this writing gig doesn't work out, maybe I'll try Life of Crime. No, I won't. I wouldn't do that.
Nice.
But it was just really fun to, I know that sounds really odd, but it was really fun to put myself in the shoes of a criminal in a fictional world where nothing is real and no one gets hurt, and write, hopefully, an entertaining story, because that is why I write. I write to entertain. That's why I write. I want people, I would hope, not everyone, because it's impossible to please everyone, but I would hope that when somebody picks up my book, and one of my books, they read it and they get to the end and they think, oh, that was time well spent. I enjoyed that. What else has she written? That's my aim. And so I think that's why Lucas was funny, because I found him entertaining. He entertained me.
Yep. Yeah, well, no, and I agree with you. I think there is a safety to the idea. The act of writing means we get to do all these nasty, terrible, horrible things, and not suffer any of the repercussions, except possibly, right, anxiety about our writing.
Yes.
So,
yes,
yeah.
And also, going back to my friend being murdered, that was something I could never do anything about.
Right.
But I can in my writing. I can serve justice to whomever I think deserves it, right, even though I couldn't in real life.
Well, and definitely, again, getting back to not pleasing everybody, you've pleased plenty of people from what I've seen. Several of your books are bestsellers. So well done on that. Disha had, sorry if I've pronounced that wrong. Disha had a question. Hi, Hannah. I have a question on the importance of prose. Is language and description more important than intensity of plot? So, you know, interpret that how you wish, but
I think it probably depends on the genre. I don't write literary fiction, nor do I read a ton of it, to be honest. So for me, certainly in thrillers and also in rom-coms, actually, I think more in genre fiction, the importance is move the plot forward. Doesn't mean you sacrifice prose. I mean, you still got to write stuff properly. But you might, the thing is always literary fiction, what's the difference? Well, literary fiction, you might take 3 pages to describe a leaf. That's kind of the
right.
joke way of looking at it. Whereas with certainly with thrillers, I try to end every chapter either with a question or answering a question or somebody arriving somewhere or going somewhere or something that will hopefully make the reader say, oh, I know it's really late, but I just want to read one more chapter.
Right. Well, and definitely, again, some of the reviews I've been reading for your work is, you know, that people are talking about the pleasure of reading the books.
Mm-hmm.
That it's for, to use a potentially derogatory way of saying it, it's a easy read in the sense that it's a pleasurable read. You're not slogging through it.
No, you don't need a thesaurus.
Yeah.
Read my books.
Yes. Yeah. I'm a big fan of Umberto Eco. You need entire history encyclopedias to read through some of those. Mm-hmm. So, and sadly I write that way. So it takes me forever to actually have a point, as you've noticed probably in these questions. So again, sort of getting back to, you know, how we got to know each other was, again, you taking the screenwriting class at Rain Dance because you were interested in adapting one of your novels, Her Secret Son, into a screenplay. I was there. I got to watch the process, but I would love for you to share the process as it was for you, because I know a lot of people are, you know, a lot of us write multiple media or think multiple media, and each one's got its own sort of checks and balances and frustrations. So from your perspective.
One of the reasons that I took the course, one of them was I wanted to see if I could adapt one of my novels to a screenplay. Just again, oh look, it's something different. Oh, can I do that? Let's see. Let's find out. And another reason was that I figured that it would help me tighten up my plots. Because when I plot, one of the methods I use is Save the Cat. I discovered Save the Cat, and I found that to be really, really helpful with outlining the beats in my books. And it's not Save the Cat Writes a Novel, which has come out since I read Save the Cat, which I should probably read too, but I haven't yet. But I still use Save the Cat. And also I took a course with writershq.co.uk, which you might be familiar with, called Plot Stormers. Sarah and Joe run that course, and their logo is stop effing about and start writing, which really appealed to me. It made me laugh. But if you don't like strong language, that might not be the course for you. But I loved it because it takes you from idea to full outline in about 6 weeks, or it was 6 weeks, because you do it at your own pace, and it was absolutely brilliant. So when I came for the screenwriting course, I had no idea. I'd never written. I think I downloaded Final Draft or whatever, and I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. And it was so interesting because it's completely different. It's the same but different, because I pay a lot of attention to dialogue. I love writing dialogue. I absolutely love writing dialogue. It's one of my favorite things as I'm writing my novels. And I thought, okay, so maybe I can sharpen up my skills on that as well, because there's so much dialogue in screenplays, and then tone it down and just have the bare minimum description of what's going on. So be sparse with that, but drive the plot forward. And I will never forget one of the things you said, which was kind of embarrassing, but very eye-opening as well for me. You'd read a few pages and you said, the protagonist's name is Josh, and you said, why is Josh in every scene? And I said, well, because the story's from his point of view. In the book, it's all Josh. Everything is told from his point of view. It's so I don't understand the question. And you said, well, maybe somebody else could see something, could tell, you could show something through somebody else's eyes. And that was a real aha moment for me, because I hadn't, up to that point, when it came to screenplays, I hadn't considered that. Whereas in a novel, if you decide you're writing the screenplay from Josh's point of view, you stay in Josh's point of view from page 1 until the very end. You don't go flip-flopping about. Stuff cannot happen when Josh isn't around. Not so in screenplays. So it was really, really interesting. And I still have the annotated manuscript that you sent with all the comments and things for me to clean up, which I have not, alas, got to. It was a brilliant, it was really, really eye-opening. It really, really, really helped. And I hope one day I'll be able to get back to that and work on it a bit more.
Right. Well, yeah, and in Hannah's defense on that class, I had not seen the novel at this point, so I didn't realize the story was told pretty much exclusively from Josh's perspective. Well, no, but I mean, from my perspective, you can develop a screenplay and a film from one person's perspective and keep it that way. But yeah, it was interesting to me that there was, for me, it felt like there was a lot of potential in the story that was being left out because we weren't getting other people's perspectives, because the other characters had stories, but we only got to see what Josh saw, right?
That's right. Let me just say that I don't think that the screenplay, Her Secret Son, is my best work.
Yeah, but when is your first attempt at anything your best work?
That's very true. Well, that's true. And the great thing with that was, and I think I learned this as I started writing, I've always been open to other people's feedback, because if you never take other people's feedback, you can't learn. And you don't have to take everybody's feedback. I'd go to writing groups, and some people would say, oh, I think you should do this. And I'm thinking, no, that doesn't fit with the rest of the plot. You've just seen 3,000 words and it's 90,000 words. So I know that doesn't fit. But there are a couple of instances where I'd go in and half of the room would say, I don't like this. And the other half, the third of the room would say, we like it. And a few other people would say, oh, we're indifferent. Then you start listening. And you have to be open to feedback, but you also have to trust your gut. But certainly working with editors, I mean, they give me structural edits and we go through multiple rounds of edits. And I think if you're closed to feedback, you're missing out and you're potentially difficult to work with.
Right. Well, definitely, part of that course also that you took was table reads.
Yes. And
it was specifically getting not just my feedback, but your fellow students' feedback.
Yes.
And I know you've written elsewhere about the idea that, for you, it's important that you read your work aloud. So what was that experience like for you, hearing your initial screenplay pages being read aloud, hearing your dialogue live?
It's really fun because, and this goes to the audiobooks as well. All of my, apart from Time After Time, they're all available as audio. And I always listen to my audiobooks, because you might write your dialogue with a certain cadence and rhythm, whatever, in mind, and other people will then put their interpretation on it. And it is so interesting to hear how other people will interpret your work. And I loved that. I thought that was so cool. When I listened to The Neighbours, I realized that my characters had an awful lot of phlegm because they were forever clearing their throats. And I never write that anymore, ever. I think maybe once in a book, somebody is allowed to clear their throat. So I think you learn a lot about your own writing by hearing it. Yes, when you're reading it out loud yourself, for sure. But when you hear other people reading it, because they're reading it the way they are interpreting it, the way they are seeing whatever is happening in your screenplay or your book in their mind. And I find that really fascinating and really interesting.
Well, I think that's the other thing too, is the idea that, again, this sense of control as a writer, the idea that you're telling a story and you've set it up, you've plotted it out, you've got these characters, you've created this universe in which these things unfold, and then you give that to somebody else to read and it becomes theirs.
Yes, 100%.
Right? And they completely reinterpret as they would, right?
Yeah. And they will also, every reader will bring their own experience to your work. And you have no control over that. Yeah. And I remember one review of The Neighbours. It was a 1-star review. I generally don't read them, but it was a 1-star review. And she said, these characters need to go and see a psychiatrist. These people need to have their heads smacked together. And she was really going for it. And I thought, as 1-star reviews go, I'm going to take that as a win, because she's talking about these characters as if they're real. Yeah. And I think that her opening line was, adultery is never okay. Spoiler alert, there's adultery in the book, as one might expect. Adultery is never okay, and okay, it's fictional, but maybe something happened in her life that made her have this really strong reaction. And hence she was not okay with the book, but she certainly felt, in my mind, she felt like the characters were real. So I did my job properly, I think.
Cool.
To a certain extent.
Well, I always say it's like, you can love my work or you can hate my work. The biggest fear I have is indifference to my work.
Yes. The 3-star reviews that are just one word, meh.
Yeah, exactly. Izzy was asking, it says, hi, Hannah, as well. When you're outlining a new book, do you also plan how you're going to market it, or does that come later? And I definitely want to talk about that side of things.
So initially, no, because initially, as in when I was writing Time After Time or The Neighbours, because I had no clue. I didn't have a clue. So I'm traditionally published, so I'm with HarperCollins. And they do the heavy lifting. You know, they do all of the distribution. They get me into the Walmarts, the Targets, the Costco's, the big box stores, and all of the bookshops, the Indigos, or equivalent to Waterstones in the UK. So they do all of that. They do a lot of advertising as well on social media, whether it's TikTok is a big book thing now. Or on any of the other platforms, and they do read-alongs and organize those kinds of things. I supplement that with Instagram Lives and Facebooks and writing guest posts and doing blog interviews and things like that. So I don't start marketing the book. I mean, if the question is more, am I thinking about how marketable is this particular project? Yeah, that comes into it too. I mean, I had a discussion with my editor recently where she said what she does, she gets let's say I send her an idea, I pitch her an idea for a book. So I don't have to write the manuscript before they buy them now, because I'm with the publisher. They buy on outline, on proposal, really, which is very handy. And so what she will do is I'll send her, say, a paragraph. Here's my big idea. And she'll say, yeah, that sounds good. So then I'll write an outline. And she will then take the outline and the small pitch, the elevator pitch, to the acquisitions meeting, where they all meet once a week, and they go around the table, and the editors say, this is the project that I am pitching that we for us to acquire. So just because I think I've had a great idea, my agent loves it and my editor loves it, it's not a done deal yet, because the acquisitions team could still come back and say, not so much. So what she told me is really handy, and I'm sure everyone's heard this before, is make it high concept. Essentially, make it easy to explain. Because if you can do that, next year's book is about an anger management therapy exercise gone wrong. or Never Coming Home, when she saw the outline, she said, oh, that sounds like Gone Girl meets Fargo. And apparently people went, oh, Gone Girl meets Fargo, tell us more, what's that about? So yes, I am also thinking about that now, because she put that in my head. And I think rightly so, the easier it is to explain your book, the more hooky it is. If people can not relate to it, but if people, when you say Gone Girl meets Fargo and people go, oh, yeah, that sounds intriguing, then you've already hooked them a little bit. So yes, I think about that too, of course.
Right. No, I definitely know that's important on the screenwriting and filmmaking side of things, of just, you know, how can I make it easy for champions to champion me?
Yes, exactly.
Right. And the idea that if you can, you know, students, we do logline exercises, and students are always saying, like, if I'm having trouble with the logline, is that a bad sign? And I'm like, only if you want to pitch this thing later.
Yes.
Because it's got to be memorable in minimal number of words, so that
yes.
somebody can go, oh, I remember those words. Let me go talk to the person writing the checks.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, wonderful. Yeah, definitely wanted to talk about, again, you've definitely touched on this, but from your perspective, the importance of doing that social media work, of really not just relying necessarily on your publishers, but also on yourself to really promote these things. What I love about your social media feeds is that I don't feel like I'm being sold to. I feel like I'm being invited to this like really exciting party.
Oh, good. Thank you. That means a lot. I do a lot on social media, and I do just through First Chapter Fund as well. We promote other authors, and that's really important for me. And the thriller writing community is really big on supporting one another. It's really quite extraordinary, like nothing I've ever experienced before, actually. IT recruitment could be pretty cutthroat, whereas this isn't. It honestly doesn't feel like we're in competition, because just because somebody buys Never Coming Home or reads Never Coming Home doesn't mean that that's it, I'm done, I'm never reading another book. It's not mine and nobody else's. It doesn't work that way. So I do spend a lot of time on social media, and already when I was working for Talisman, the IT recruitment company, I was very active with networking, especially when we were acquired by a larger group. I got to meet all these different people in different departments. And so I've continued that really on Instagram. Bookstagram is huge. There's so many people posting about books. And this is the thing that is so wonderful. You have so many bookstagrammers, and they take pictures of books, and they read books, and they review books, and they post about books because they love books. And that's extraordinary. I find that really amazing that somebody has picked up any of my books and has liked it, read it and liked it enough to take a picture, maybe stage a picture or do a little reel or whatever it is, and then post that. That's just wonderful. Mm. And so I try and engage as much as I can, because it can become a full-time job in and of itself. But I do try and engage with readers and thank people as much as I possibly can. And I think that goes a long way. Because somebody will post something and they've tagged me. Don't tag people if you don't like their stuff. That's really bad form. Don't do that, please, because that has happened and that's not nice. We don't want to be told our kids are ugly. If we want to know, we'll go and find out for ourselves. Thanks. But it's just lovely when something shows up and someone's given one of my books 5 stars or 4 stars or whatever, and is raving about it. It's just lovely that they would do that. So I do try and engage as much as I can, and meet people that way as well. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that's I mean, that's sort of the whole point of Collab Writers, from my perspective. It definitely is about establishing a community and supporting each other. Yeah. So yeah, when somebody actually reaches out and says something nice, actually makes the effort to reach out, then, you know, anybody can like your book and yay. But if they actually put work into it to let you know they write it, then yeah, I think I'm with you. I think they deserve hey, how's it going?
Yeah, well, thank you. That's really kind. Yeah. You know, it's just, and I know, you know, depending on how many readers you have, that becomes impossible. And I'm sure Stephen King doesn't answer every person that tags him in a post.
Actually, I'm not so sure if you read his Twitter account, but he may actually be sitting there responding to everything. We're pretty much right at the hour. If you've still got a little bit more time, I was hoping maybe we could open up the floor to if anybody else has got questions. So if anybody has a question that they want to specifically ask, you can either type it in the chat or you can raise the hand. And we
I'm an open book.
Oh, Julie. Feel free to unmute yourself.
Right, I'm
there we go.
now.
Yep.
Yeah, really a health problem. How do you cope with being a writer, sitting for so many hours? And do you use the computer to write, or do you write by hand?
So I write on the computer. I'm actually sitting right now, but I have a standing desk converter. So I stand and then I sit a bit, and I stand and then I sit a bit. And I do try and get out and walk. Not this week so much yet, apart from once, but I do try and get out once a day, because that's also time for me to noodle things around in my head about what's working or not working. Or I solve plot points a lot when I'm out walking. And
I made the mistake of sitting for 3 hours once.
Yeah, I mean, sitting, writing and sitting, it's an occupational hazard, isn't it? It is, it's not the best. So I do try and get out and walk at least, well, probably an hour or so at least every day.
Cool. Okay. Alan's asking in the chat, what piece of writing advice would you give to your younger writing self?
Take some courses, woman. So that probably would have been something I should have done. So when I started writing time after time, I just went with it, and I just wrote the thing, and I sent it to my mum, who read it and said it was great. Thanks, Mum. And then I sent it to agents who said, yeah, maybe. We like the idea, we like the premise, but the execution is flawed. And I thought, okay, I prefer that than the other way around. I'd prefer that than them saying, well, your writing is good, but the idea is terrible. Go and find another idea. So I took some courses, both online and in person locally, and I joined some writing groups. And that was when I started getting feedback on my work. And that helped tremendously. I took a course with Curtis Brown, the literary agency in the UK. They had a 6-month online novel writing course. And I applied for a spot, not thinking I'd get in, and thinking, well, I'll worry about it if I do, because it was pretty pricey. And they offered me a spot. So and as I was taking that course and nearing the end, I'd reworked the manuscript. And I happened to go to a local workshop, which was how to get published. And a guest speaker was an agent. I asked him a question. He asked me about the manuscript, asked if it was funny. I said, well, I think so. And he said, well, send me some pages. And that was how I got my first agent. I switched agencies afterwards, but that was how that happened. And I think, you know, honestly, if I'd known how long it would take, because patience is not my strong suit. I'm not a patient person at all, and you need patience in this business. Everything moves very, very slowly until it doesn't, and then you got to move, and then it's my speed, and I'm okay with that. But if I'd known how long it would take at the beginning and how many rejections I would have, I don't know. Would I have continued? Probably, because my mum would have said pig-headed. I wanted to get a book deal. I wanted to get an agent. I wanted to get traditionally published. And every rejection, and there were many, I thought, I'll show you. You will regret this day that you didn't sign me. And I took them. I remember my boss, the IT recruitment business, he said, every no is one no closer to the yes. It's just something you got to go through. And I know that I know for sure that if I had stopped writing, I would not have been published. That's a certainty. So
there you go. Cool. Anybody else have a question?
Yeah, Randall, I do.
See, I knew it was going to be Swati. I just knew. Okay, go for it.
So, Hannah, first of all, amazing session. Just loved all the pointers. And, actually, personally, I had a lot to connect to because I've been an IT recruiter turned a filmmaker and in the process, actually, of transitioning completely. So, my question is from there that, were there any particular parts you found to be challenging when you were transitioning from corporate world into being a full-time writer?
The most challenging I found was going from being really successful professionally to not knowing if I was going to get published or succeed. That I found really, really hard until I said to myself, okay, so it took you 10 odd years to go from joining the company to becoming CEO. It took you even longer from starting off in industry to becoming a published author. To becoming a CEO. So why do you think this is going to happen overnight? It's not going to happen overnight. It takes time and it takes perseverance, and just keep your head down, do the best work you can, write the best novel you can, and just keep writing. But it's the not knowing, really. I found that really, really challenging. Is this going to go anywhere? Am I ever going to get an agent? Am I ever going to get a book deal? If someone had said, yeah, you will, then it would be a lot easier, but it doesn't work that way. You just have to, you need a lot of perseverance in the business for sure. And even now, I mean, yes, I've published 6 novels. Yes, I have another 3 that have been acquired. Yes, I have multiple bestsellers. Nothing's guaranteed. Doesn't mean it'll continue. But what I can do is write the best possible book that I can, and hopefully it will.
Thank you. That's great.
Muting myself. Okay. Charles is asking in the chat, what's the indicator that convinces you that you have a strong story and character over other ideas? So when your brain is exploding with ideas, how do you pick the better ones?
That's a great question, Charles. Brilliant. I think it's when the idea won't let me go. When I might have a number of ideas and they come and go, and I might write some down, and some I'll forget. And then it's the one that just sticks in my brain that won't let me go. Like Lucas, the bad guy, right? In Never Coming Home, just going, come on, write my story. Write the story from a bad guy's perspective. We're underrepresented. Come on. I'm the villain, but I'm a good villain. Come on, write my story. It's those ones, or the amnesia one. I remember hearing that story about the gentleman who disappeared, and just parking that in my brain, and it just stayed there. It wouldn't go away. And when that happens, generally, I know I'm onto something that I want to write, that hopefully then has legs as I develop the story, the plot.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I think a variation on that for me, because I agree with you totally on that, but also is letting the people around me, the people that know me, tell me when I'm on something, because I can't shut up about it. Or the way I'm talking about it, there's an energy that's there that isn't there with some of the other stuff I'm less confident in.
Yes.
You know, I've got a science documentary that I really have to do something with, but family and friends are sick of hearing me talk about it, because it's like, but happy to see me ebullient, but by the same token, it's like, shut up and do it already.
Yeah.
So,
do you ever find yourself working on something and you're cheating on your current manuscript with the next one that you want to write, and you're already flirting with it?
Always.
Yes. That could be another sign.
Yeah. That could be a future thriller. So
yeah.
a story idea.
The next one will always be super easy and great and dead easy to write. Of course it will, and then it isn't, and then you flirt with the next one.
Yeah, Well, it's the passion of discovery, right? It's the newness of everything as well, right? And it's like I don't have any problems with this story yet.
That's right. Yeah. Yet. The word. Yes.
Charles, you wanted to follow up? Oh, so you can. Oh, okay, cool.
No, I was just a round of applause the same.
Okay.
Agree with what you're saying. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Cool.
Pleasure.
Anybody else have any questions, or just want to give a round of applause?
Ask me anything.
Yeah, Julie.
You said you like writing dialogue. Are you inspired to write a play?
I don't think so, because it's not something I'm familiar with. So I don't think so. Oh, and I just remembered you had a second part to the first question. You had, do I write by hand? And the answer is, it depends. So I don't write my manuscripts by hand, but if I'm stuck on a plot point, I'll probably sit down and write something, scribble something out by hand. Or when I'm editing, I'll edit on my computer and have a notebook next to me. And as ideas pop up, oh, yeah, must add this or must do this. And then yes, but I would never write a manuscript by hand, because I can type much faster than I can write by hand.
Cool. Any other questions? Yeah, on the sort of the perseverance thing that you mentioned earlier, the idea that you had to remind yourself of how long it took you to become the CEO of a company. So why should becoming a best-selling novelist occur in a shorter time span? Do you think that, and again, we all sort of come into doing this at whatever age we are when we come into doing this, so we can't really control it. But do you think there is sort of almost maybe a bit of an advantage in that sense for someone coming in a little later as a second or third career to writing versus someone who's maybe just coming straight out of college and who doesn't have the sort of the life experience? And this is by no means intended to slag off youth, which I used to have a long time ago. But do you think there is the power of experience, life experience, in developing stories, or just having the patience to keep plugging away?
I think for the stories that I write that deal with family, husbands, wives, boyfriends, girlfriends, mothers, fathers, sons, and whatnot, having that experience has definitely helped my writing. But I don't think it necessarily applies. I mean, if you're writing an epic fantasy novel, does it still apply? Maybe. But I've certainly found it really, really helpful. And I think we had 3 kids in 16 months. I had twins the second time around. When I say that, people look at me and go, they start counting.
She is very efficient. She's very organized.
Chop, let's get this done.
Yeah.
I think having kids has probably helped, certainly in terms of multitasking and just thinking about things and working things through, and life experience in general, and maybe patience and the perseverance too. But I think honestly, the biggest thing was my corporate career that has probably helped. Well, maybe it's a combination of everything, really. But I've seen tweets about people saying, "Oh, I'm 28 and I haven't been published yet. So should I even bother?" Yes, I was 45 when my first book came out. Delia Owens, Where the Crawdads Sing, massive smash hit, eons on the New York Times bestseller list. I think that's her first novel, and she was in her 70s. So yeah, I don't think age really factors into it either way. I know someone who wrote her first novel at 15, and she just picked up an agent and from what I gather, a publishing contract, and she's now in her early 20s, I believe.
Right. Wonderful. Any other questions from the group? Come on, you got questions.
Anything.
Anything at all.
Ask me anything. Pop it in the chat.
Okay, Anjali.
I haven't actually got a question, but I am going to get all of your books because I just think they sound great. And I do read a lot, and I only read thrillers, really. So
that's really kind of you. Thank you.
But everything you said has been so useful because, as you know, Jennie and I have written a book together, and we're working on 2 others, and it's been really helpful.
Yes. How's that co-authoring? That must be a really
that was hard. It was
It's okay. Jennie's not here. You can say anything you want.
We had a good editor. I know because because she wrote one twin's part and I wrote the other twin, and there's identical twins, and how do you distinguish them? Because it just flowed from what I'd written into what she'd written. And so luckily we got a good editor who actually managed to sort that out for us. And then you kind of know, oh, who's talking now? And the same as identical twins, you might not know which twin it is you're looking at. It's like
I have identical twins, and sometimes I have trouble distinguishing them when especially if they're running away, then all bets are on.
But it worked really well, and it was fun to do anyway. You know, we gave ourselves 1 calendar year and we wrote it in it one
nice
year.
Congratulations.
Thanks. Well, there's 2 more.
I've never co-written with anyone. That would be really an interesting experience to do.
Yeah.
Can you sort of elaborate maybe a bit on the relationship with your editor? Just sort of riffing off of what Anjali was saying of just the importance of that relationship, and them really, you know, both being there for you, but also there for the company, right?
Yeah.
And getting the best out of you.
Yes. So I've been really fortunate to work with brilliant editors. I had one HarperCollins UK Avon brand for the UK for the first one, and then another one for for the Neighbours and Her Secret Son, Michelle. She then left the industry, and I worked with a new editor, Emily. And Michelle had actually acquired Sister Dear, but left before I'd written it. So that was a moment of trepidation because Emily had not acquired Sister Dear, and she inherited the project really. And that was a little bit worrying for me because I thought, oh gosh, you know, what if she didn't buy it? What if she doesn't like it? And she emailed me. She said, I'm starting to read Sister Dear. I love it, and I'll finish it tomorrow. And then she emailed me about 11 o'clock at night saying, OMG, I've just finished it and I loved it and it's brilliant and I'll get my notes to you. And that was a big relief. So I've always viewed it, the relationship with my editor as we have the same common goal. And that goal is that we want the book to be the best it possibly can and to do the best it possibly can. So with that in mind, when I receive the structural edits letter back, I don't see it as oh, she hates everything I've written, or, oh, I'm going to set fire to it all, or whatever. Because of course, yes, she'll say what she liked, but she will focus on the things that need work. That's the whole point. I mean, there's, yeah, sure, lip service, great, but it doesn't actually help, does it? It's lovely, but it doesn't, you need a bit of that maybe, but then you need to focus on what isn't working. And I love that process because I know that with her help, the manuscript will be a lot better than it was when she first received it. So I see it as a partnership and a collaboration, rather than, I was going to say a fight, but it wouldn't be, that would just be weird. And sometimes I've thought, I don't think I want to do that. And then I'll go away and I'll think about it. I won't say anything, and I'll come back and I'll go, yeah, she was right. I do need to do that. So in The Neighbours with Michelle, it originally had 3 point of view characters. And in her structural letter, she said, there's this character, Nancy, the neighbor's wife. I think she should have her own chapters. And I stopped reading and I freaked out for about 10 minutes thinking, how am I going to do that? And then I sat down and thought, okay, A, she's right. B, I'll ask her what her recommendation is on how I'm going to do that. Because you're not alone. You're not working on this manuscript alone anymore. It's a partnership, which is lovely. So I've been really, really lucky and fortunate to work with brilliant editors. I have a new one now because Emily left. It's not me, I promise. She left the industry and she's now an independent, a freelance editor. I hope it's not me. So now I have a new one, Dina, and we're working on the book for next year and the one after together. And so far it's been equally as brilliant.
Yeah, it's funny on the getting notes and recognizing the validity of the notes so often is I've got a writers group for the screenwriting stuff, and I've gotten plenty of notes, plenty of challenging notes, and rare is the day where I can go, no, you guys are completely, yeah, no, I know.
Yeah.
I was kind of hoping nobody notices, honestly, the way I walked in. I knew it was a problem.
I've had a couple of moments like that where I've thought, I'm not sure this is working in the manuscript, but let's see. Yeah. And invariably, the editor, one of my editors has said, you know, this bit in the manuscript, that's not working. I think, I thought I could get away with it. No. If you're feeling something isn't working, then chances are they're going to notice too.
But again, like you said, it's you're the nice thing about this situation, same with my writers group, is I'm not alone.
That's
right.
So
so it can be a brainstorming opportunity, right?
Yes.
And that was definitely, you know, when you and I were together in the chorus, you know, that was very much my approach was, I'm not just going to point out what's wrong, but I'm going to see if I can help you figure out how to get to the next step.
Exactly.
Knowing it's always yours. You're the final arbiter because it's your creative work.
Yes, exactly. And there are different stages for the editing for the novel. So there'd be the structure, the big things, you know, adding a point of view character, changing the pacing, the big ticket items. And then as you go through the rounds, there will become fewer and fewer, and you have copy edits and line edits. And then sometimes there are things where I'll say, well, no, because my character would not say this particular word or use this expression, or there was one time, funny story, in The Neighbours, there's a scene where a guy goes into a house to unblock the filter of an appliance. And the appliance is in the kitchen. And he's fiddling around with the filter and he pulls out a thong out of the filter. And that's why the machine is broken. It's not working properly. And I was listening to the audio, and they'd said, blah, 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 dishwasher. And I thought, what? I never wrote dishwasher, I wrote washing machine. Who on earth changed it from washing machine to dishwasher? And I called my editor and I was laughing my head off. And I said, have you ever washed your underwear in the dishwasher? And she said, well, what are you talking about? I said, well, in The Neighbours, somebody at HarperCollins changed washing machine to dishwasher. And the reason why they did that is The Neighbours is set in the UK. And I lived in the UK as a kid, and we had our washing machine and dryer in the kitchen. We didn't have a utility room, they were in the kitchen. But somebody over here decided that, no, that's weird. You don't have your washing machine in the kitchen. She must have meant her dishwasher. And so forevermore, he found a thong in the dishwasher. so sometimes changes are made that shouldn't be made.
So the next time you guys are doing dishes, if you have a dishwasher, check first, because you never know what you're going to find in there. You
never know. It really was fun. I think they changed it in the ebook. I think they changed it, and now they've actually changed their method where we have the copy edits. And then we get the advanced reader copies, so initial printed books. And then we get another pass, and I see the final, that after all edits are done, I get the opportunity to read through it again. So hopefully that will never happen in another of my books. But it was really funny. It was actually it was funny. It's not like it's a make or break thing for the book anyway, but it was rather amusing when now you've got the inside story about why the thong is in the dishwasher.
I was going to say, I didn't see any reviews that specifically specified that, but I don't know that I was reading your 1-star reviews because forget adultery being wrong. Thongs in the dishwasher. I mean, that's just craziness. And Disha's got a question. Can you suggest a few exercises as daily practice to get into the writing mode?
Yeah. So one thing that was really revolutionary to me when I took a writing course, somebody said, and I have no idea why I never thought of this myself, honestly, it was just such a light bulb moment. we were talking about writer's block and what you can do. And they said, well, if you don't know what happens, if you're stuck on a scene, skip ahead. Just go to a scene where you know what will happen. It could be the end. It could be 3 chapters down. It could be, or you could go and write some backstory of the character, but just skip ahead. And I thought, oh yeah, especially because I plot. And even if you don't, you already have something in mind. Go and write that and then trust yourself to backfill, because nobody said that a screenplay or a novel has to be written in the order that it is read or filmed, right? So that was really quite interesting. You could write about your character if you're stuck, you know, or if you're not really into the writing that particular day. Think about a day in the life of the character before your story started. What were they doing, or what will they be doing? Or, you know, write 2 or 3 paragraphs. Set a timer. That often works for me. If you say, okay, I am just going to write for the next 20 minutes, and I'm just going to write. It doesn't matter what it is, but I'm just going to write. Or go out and do something else. You know, there have been times where things haven't been working. I've been noodling stuff around. The skipping ahead isn't working. None of that is working. So I'll just go and do something else. And generally, the whatever it is that isn't working will. But to be honest, whether you're writing a novel or a screenplay, ultimately it does come down to bum in seat, fingers on keyboard, words on page. Because if you're not writing, it's not going to get on the page. And also, for me, the worst, my least favorite part is what I call my skeleton draft. So that's my vomit draft, my puke draft. I've got my plot. I'm just going to write this out. The characters are really 2-dimensional. There's not a lot of emotion. There's lots of dialogue, but not many tags, because I know who's speaking, so it doesn't matter. I like to do that as fast as I can, because my preferred bit is the editing, and you cannot edit a blank page. So get something on the page. Just get it on the page, because then you can clean it up and nobody will ever know how ropey it was at the beginning, and it doesn't matter. Yeah. It doesn't matter.
That's actually a thing that I've been incorporating more and more into the teaching, as well as reminding myself, is you have permission to suck.
You totally have permission to suck. And I didn't, you know, when a few years ago, somebody said to me, first draft, it's okay for your first draft to suck. And I thought, whoa, no, it absolutely not. What they meant was not the first draft you show anyone, the first draft for you. Yeah. And then you go and rework it and edit it. But your first draft can totally suck. Absolutely. Yeah. Who cares? You polish it afterwards. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah. I tell the students now when I start any class, it's like the biggest difference between me here as the instructor and you there as the students is I know and am very comfortable with the fact that I'm going to write insanely badly, because I've done that a lot and I know I can make it better.
Yep.
Some of you at least are probably thinking you should be able to do this correctly the first time.
You shouldn't be writing your first draft and having your editor, you know, your self-editor on your shoulder at the same time. Yeah. It just doesn't. Just switch that off. Set later. I need you, but not now.
Yes.
Let me just get this thing on the page, and then I'll go tidy up. Then you can come in and edit. But not now.
Yep. Yeah, I'm all about a badly chosen word as a replacement for no word at all.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. We've had you for 90 minutes, and so you know we've got to let you go at some point because you've got books to write. So thanks very much, Hannah. Really greatly appreciate the time, and hopefully everybody, you know, had a good time with it, and we all took home some sort of message where other than Randy talks too much. So.
It was a pleasure. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If you have any questions, my email's on my website, so you can always send me a message if there's anything that you're that you think of that you hadn't thought of during the session. But thank you for joining.
Right.
Thank you, Randall. It's been lovely to see you. It's been a few years.
It has been, yep.
Email and social, but no, it's been great. Thank you.
Wonderful. So
thank you.
With Jennie gone, I'm not going to sort of stick around to do the social thing this time. So, you know, ironically, after saying you should socialize, you should get in the community, I got stuff to do this afternoon. So, but I'm sure Jennie will be. I'm sure on everyone's behalf, wish Jennie a speedy recovery, and want to thank everybody for taking the time to be here and ask questions and participate, because this is our community.
Chris has a question.
You said your email address is on your website. Would you be open to reading a very short script for a short movie, 12 pages? Do you do that or not at all?
I don't know if I'm the right person to read a screenplay. I'm happy to look it over, but I'm not sure I'm the best person for that. I don't know if my feedback would be the most valuable, to be honest, because I don't. Other than writing the bad screenplay for Her Secret Son, I have no experience reading or writing them.
Thank you, Hannah.
No problem.
Okay, thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Have a great day, and the recording will be up when we get it up. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.